do a little a little show for you while I was driving. I'm trying to get this thing squared away here. Hold on a minute. So I just set up like this jerry rig phone holder thing because my understanding is I can't drive and film myself at the same time when I'm doing these shows. So I'm trying to do this so I don't run awry of any of the Google, YouTube rules. Hopefully you guys can see the road. And I'm just going to head to the gym and talk to you a little bit about the unauthorized practice of law. What's up, Jody? Talk to you a little bit about the unauthorized practice of law with respect to corporations. And so I don't know if this is going to work or not. I'm going to roll down the windows a little bit so there may be some noise here. Maybe I'll try to get the AC going on low. Let's check it out. Give me 1 second, guys. Just got to do this right, you know, because I'm riding dirty. I'm always riding dirty. You know how that goes, right, guys? Riding dirty. I'm riding dirty. Now, this is the first time I've tried this. So basically, I jerry-rigged this thing to hold my phone. So it's hanging with rubber bands off my rear view mirror. So let's just see what happens. We'll get into the unauthorized practice of law. If you start a trust or if you start a corporation, that's going to shield you guys financially. It'll give you the shield of corporate immunity and all that, unless someone, of course, could pierce the corporate veil. Hopefully you guys can hear me. Jody, can you hear me? Give me a 5x5 if y'all can hear me. Hoping you guys can hear me before I keep driving off here. Let me know if you guys can hear me. Give me a bunch of ones or a 5x5, Jody, if you can. And because obviously I want you guys to be able to hear me if I'm going to be trying to tell you some legal knowledge. You know what I'm saying? So I'm still looking for a signal. Give me a sign, oh Lord, that people can hear me. And so I'm just kind of waiting to make sure you guys can freaking doggone hear what I'm saying. Is that a yes or a no? Do we have somebody saying they can hear me or not? Testing 1 2 3. Can you hear me? Testing 1 2 3. Can you hear me? Well, I'll just try and assume that you guys can hear me. How's that? Since it doesn't look like I'm going to have a big audience today. All right. So, assuming you guys can hear anything that I'm saying, we're going to talk today a little bit about corporations and the unauthorized practice of law. Roger that. Okay, cool. So thank you for joining me, Robert. And obviously I can't really pay attention to the chats because I don't want to get in a wreck. But so I've jerry-rigged this cell phone holder thing to my rear view mirror, and I don't know how much longer it's going to last because it's super hot outside, and et cetera, et cetera. And I'll try to go live later tonight. I got some cool videos that John Felix sent me that I think are pretty dope about racist cops and stuff. So that's always fun. But let's talk about corporations and the unauthorized practice of law, because I see a lot of you guys, especially you, for lack of a better word, sovereign citizens, people who think you're legal geniuses because you went to prison and learned a little bit about the law. And so you set up these corporations and you think that now your business is protected, or you're protected from lawsuits. Like they can only go, the people suing you can only go after the assets of the corporation, et cetera, et cetera. And so I'm only authorized to practice law in California and Texas, but I can definitely tell you that for the most part, in most states, if you set up a corporation, you are not allowed to represent that corporation as a lawyer. You can do administrative tasks as if you were the head of the human resources department and stuff like that. But other than that, you don't have those rights. How's it going, Sticky Wicked? So if you try and represent a corporation, like let's say you set up the corporation to protect my YouTube channel if Lane Myers tries to sue me, kind of a thing, and you think that you're hot shit, and then you start filing lawsuits on behalf of that corporation or defending a lawsuit against that corporation, I would say that's a 99% chance that you've just engaged in what's called the unauthorized practice of law. And as a result of that, the state attorney general or the local prosecutor could come after you. And in Texas, I believe it's a misdemeanor. I'm not sure what it is in California. I haven't really done the research. I'm not really going to rattle off code sections. I'm just giving you guys a little legal information as I head to the gym on this beautiful day today, because I have got to burn some calories and get my endorphins and dopamine levels up, because I am a stressed out lawyer. And as most of you may not know, lawyers have a higher risk of heart attack and stress-related illnesses, right up there with dentists, and I think suicide as well, because of the stress that we're under. So it's super important that you work out and take care of yourself if you're practicing law. Now, let's get back into if you are representing your corporation, because a lot of you guys are really smart, all right? But you don't know everything. And I'm a lawyer, and I've been practicing law for 20 years, and I certainly don't know everything. I've learned a lot. I've learned more from Lane Myers and guys like Reluctant Prophet over the last few weeks than I've learned in the last several years of practicing basically personal injury law and workers' compensation law. So, because those guys deal more in the realm of criminal, and I haven't really practiced criminal law for years. That's how I got my start, doing appellate law and criminal law. But then I also had to figure out a way to feed my family, and so that's why I do catastrophic injury cases, because these military veterans, all my biker friends, they get in accidents. They don't like dealing with civilians, and so they figure I'm going to hire Ehline because he's one of us. And so that's what I do. And so I practice law in California and Texas, and I try to live anywhere I can open carry. So if I'm going to live in somewhere, even though I grew up in Cali, because it's communist-fornia and they don't really give you the right to defend your family, I'm going to live in a state like Nevada or Texas. Give me a bunch of ones if you understand that. Hi, Tiffany. So really quickly, privates, if you have so let's say you set up this corporation to defend lawsuits from people like Lane Myers Inc., and then that corporation gets sued. If you try to go in there and self-represent that corporation, I would say it's 99% chance that you have now engaged in the unauthorized practice of law, assuming arguendo that that case was brought in a regular municipal or superior court. However, if it's a small claims court, typically most states have another rule for that. So it's more, oftentimes when I was getting my start in law and had my contracting business, I had to sue people for failing to pay the bills and stuff like that. And I'd sue them in small claims court. And sometimes they used their corporations to pay me because they thought they were going to be slick, right? But here's the problem with a corporation. If you're suing a corporation, that corporation, or anyone else for that matter, does not have the right to an attorney. So in that case, the attorney could strike that. The corporation could send their person most knowledgeable about the case or about the corporation to defend that small claims case. But that is the exception to the general rule that you are not allowed to represent your corporation unless you hire a lawyer or are a lawyer. Now, one of the downsides typically of if you're a lawyer like me and I want to represent my corporations, one of the downsides to that is if you're pro per as a lawyer or pro per in any other matter, as far as I know, in most states, you're not entitled to collect an award of attorney's fees. You copy that? Unless you have a lawyer representing you, you are not entitled to attorney's fees for the defense of your case. So one of the things that is super valuable about the SLAPP and anti-SLAPP provisions is that the prevailing party in a defamation claim typically is entitled to attorney's fees. But if you self-represent, you're divested of that ability to receive an award of attorney's fees. And that is the primary motivator to get people to settle or to retract their defamatory statements about you, is the fact that they're facing a huge problem with attorney's fees. And of course, if you file a defamation claim against someone and they know what they're doing, they'll immediately hire a lawyer and seek attorney's fees against you and use that as a tool to get you to withdraw your lawsuit. So that's just a little aside, but the same rule applies with most cases. If you self-represent, even as an attorney, if you're representing that corporation, you are not going to be entitled to attorney's fees unless you have another lawyer as part of your legal team. And then why would you even want to be on the pleadings, right? Because then it just looks like you're a goofy pro per litigant who can't afford a lawyer trying to get a lawyer so you can get attorney's fees. So typically that's not the way to go. What's going on? What's the matter, you? So now, what are the defenses? Okay, because that's a good question. The defenses are a big deal because, and look, I'm doing this because I get people calling me about all kinds of different stuff. And whenever I hear something from someone like one of my buddies or one of my subscribers, and they're having problems with a similar issue, obviously I'm not going to share anything about them or their case. But if it's something that I feel, you know what, this is something that my other subscribers may face in the future, and so I'm going to talk to you guys about it. So let's say the state attorney general or the local prosecutor is now seeking charges against you for the criminal offense of unauthorized practice of law. Well, are there defenses? Because typically, whenever we talk about crimes, we want to discuss what defenses are available to obviate yourself or mitigate that crime. Obviate the crime completely and get the charges thrown out. Maybe get a warning, right? Get a warning from the court, right? Or to mitigate the crime, to reduce the punishment and consequences of the crime. So so you can avoid jail time, for example. You'd want to be able to mitigate with a proper defense. Now, typically in most of these unauthorized practice of law cases where you're representing your corporation and you're not a lawyer, your defenses are going to be stronger and less powerful depending on who you are. So it's going to be the accused and their experience, knowledge, and skill in the law. So for example, if you are one of these guys who brags all the time and have a bunch of followers on YouTube about what a great legal genius you are, about how you spent a lot of time in prison and you really know what you're talking about because you spent a lot of time in the law library there, if you have videos bragging about how smart you are and how much you know the law, then the judge is going to say, well, you know what, ignorance of the law is no excuse, and in this case you're a braggart and you pretend like you know all this stuff about the law, so I'm going to throw the book at you. Now, on the other reverse side of the coin, let's say that you're an old granny and your husband passed away and he left you the corporation, right? He left you the corporation in the will or the trust, or it passed to you through intestate succession or by operation of law. If that's the case, a judge could very well find, you know what, although ignorance of the law is no excuse and we're all presumed to know the law, I don't think that Granny, in defending this corporation because she's broke, because she lost her husband Earl, is capable. She really knew what she was doing, and she thought that she could defend this corporation in court, or she thought she could sue on behalf of this corporation in court. Well, if that's the case, then Granny probably would get off what's called a warning or get a slap of the hand. But typically, the prosecutor probably wouldn't even bring the case, right? They're usually going to bring the case because they think you're an asshole because you do these YouTube videos and you're anti-government or whatever. And so they'll want to try to find a way to get you another way, right? We see that with Lane Myers, right? If they can't get him one way, they'll get him another. Just like the Soviets said, show me the crime, show me the person and I'll show you the crime, right? Same kind of thing. So since I'm stopped here, does anybody have any questions so far? See, Tiffany says, I don't know nothing. Even if I still did, wouldn't know nothing. My bubby who is in heaven. I'm sorry. Rest in peace, brother. Ignorance of God Almighty law is absolutely no excuses for nobody, starting with our first father, Adam. Kinetic Customs, good seeing you, my man. And then, what's the matter, you? Write me a song. A-OK. Very good. Very good. As you can see, we have a lot of people driving around here who must be from California, clearly don't know what they're doing. Man, can you believe this, the way these people drive here? Jiminy Christmas. I'm lucky that I've got millions of miles under my belt. I used to be a limousine driver, and before that I sold earthquake braces all over the state of California. I've got millions of miles under my belt, so I'm a pretty damn good driver. Thank God, because most people, you got to drive offensively, by the way, guys. Don't drive defensively or you'll end up getting killed. Always drive as if you're in a combat situation and you'll survive. Because it is warfare with some of these people. They drive like blithering idiots. All right, so let's get back into, look at this idiot. He has to get in front of me, even though he doesn't understand the signal phasing in Nevada. So in Nevada, it's pointless to try to speed up because the signal phasing here is like 2 minutes per light. So it's kind of stupid. But anyways, let's get back into defenses that are available. So typically, the defenses that are going to be available are going to be based, for lack of a better word, ignorance of the law. So you didn't know that you couldn't represent your corporation, and it was what they call an innocent mistake. And although that is not an absolute defense, it's a defense in mitigation. And oftentimes, a prosecutor looks at a case, could I get a conviction? Will a jury convict this person? Now, if you already have a past, or you have past allegations of unauthorized practice of law, if you already have charges that were brought and even dismissed, contacts with law enforcement, or you have that YouTube channel where you brag about how smart you are and how you're smarter than lawyers and you're a fake lawyer unless you support my YouTube channel and stuff like that, what's going to happen is the prosecutor is going to be like, you know what, this person is an a-hole and I'm going to come after this person. So if you know someone who likes to represent their corporation and pretend like they're a lawyer when they're not, you should probably warn them that they're in grave danger of self-representing their corporation. Now, what's the workaround? Well, don't set up a corporation. The workaround is you can represent yourself as a DBA. Hopefully you guys understand that. Do you know the difference between a DBA and a corporation? A corporation is an incorporeal person. It becomes a separate and distinct identity. You are no longer that person. I could set up a corporation called Michael Ehline Inc. And I could do a DBA, Michael Ehline, but not Inc. And once I incorporate Michael Ehline Inc. becomes a separate and distinct incorporeal person. And as a result of that, I can put assets and I can put things into that corporation. And if the corporation gets sued, then the corporation is only going to be liable for the assets that are in the corporation, is payoff, basically. But typically, I'll be honest with you, that doesn't always work out the way you want it to. What'll end up happening is the plaintiff, in a civil case at least, he'll sue you as your normal person, an individual, and he'll also sue your corporation. Or she will sue both entities. So it doesn't usually work out the way you wanted it to. You still are going to end up defending as a private citizen or a private party. So what I would suggest to you is you really need to think about what is the goal here. What are you trying to achieve? Are you trying to prove to all your friends that you're super slick because you know how to set up a corporation, or that you know how to set up a trust? Or is your goal more business related? Tax reasons and things like that. For example, the subchapter S corporation has flow-through tax liability, gives you a lot of asset protection, whereas a sub C corp is going to have, I think, basically what they call double taxation. So sometimes it can hurt you. So you got to think about that. And again, I'm not giving you legal advice. I'm not a tax attorney. I'm trying to share with you the legal principles of law as I understand them to be. And if you guys know something I don't know, well, share it with me, because I'm not one of these guys who wants to be a know-it-all. Again, like I've told you before, I've learned a lot from guys like Lane Myers and Reluctant Prophet and Chili DeCastro. And I think that only an ignorant fool, even if he's been in practice for 20 years or more like me, thinks that they know everything. You always have to be humble and understand that the Lord gave us all these amazing gifts, and some people are just gifted. People like a Lane Myers, he's very gifted at what he does. But I think a lot of you also agree that he lacks some skills when it comes to being personable, when it comes to not, going bananas in court, which actually hurts him. So, civility is also a really, really important part of the game that you have to play when you're going to do law, because defending your case from jail could just mean the difference of being polite, because the jury and the prosecutor they're going to turn up the heat if they don't like you and try to figure out a way to lock you up. That's just the way it is. Give me a bunch of ones if you guys agree. That's just been my experience from having done this for so many years. So just something that you should probably think about. Now, so let's get back into it. So your defenses, again, you can defend or you can attack in the name of your corporation in small claims court in most states that I'm aware of. Small claims court provides an exception to the rule of unauthorized practice of law with respect to corporations. And typically the person most knowledgeable about that corporation, if it's being sued, can defend it. Or if you're suing on behalf of the corporation in small claims, like you're the CEO or whatever, you could sue on behalf of that corporation in small claims court. So, like let's say you got a dry cleaner and somebody owes you $300, you're not going to want to go to civil court. Shoot, the filing fee alone is going to be more than $300 to file your lawsuit. So hopefully you guys are following me. But if you're one of these people that brags about how smart you are and you have the YouTube channel and you're talking about what a smart lawyer you are, and you start suing on behalf of your corporation that you set up, I would say the chances are 99.99% you have just made yourself eligible for the criminal prosecution of unauthorized practice of law. And so if you know of anybody like that who likes to sue or bring legal actions on behalf of a corporation and they've made admissions and confessions in court, they're likely going to be subject to criminal prosecution. And if the police already don't like that particular individual, I would say that the judge is going to throw the book at that person. So you really, really have to be careful, guys, when you're out there trying to profess how intelligent you are, and then setting up a corporation because you think somehow that's going to protect you, and then represent that corporation. And again, unauthorized practice of law, it's a really big deal. Let's face it, the bar systems and state bar organizations in every state, they're very, very protective of their lawyers, and they're going to do everything they can to go after anyone who they think is gypping them or taking money out of their pocket. That's the way I look at it. And so you have to be super careful. Hopefully you guys learned a lot. I got to hit the gym and try to get a workout in here. But hopefully you guys are starting to get a little bit of an understanding about the life of a lawyer. And I try to be as productive with my time as possible. So I'm always going to be trying to kill two birds with one stone. So today wasn't really able to share a lot of my face with you because I know that I think YouTube has some rule against driving and filming yourself while you're driving or something. But it is okay to film the street, I guess. I guess that's the rule that they have. So let me just see here. I'm going to take a look. I'm going to pull this thing out of here. All right, so let's take a look here. So Raul Maheda asked what I do for a living. Well, I do a lot of things. One of the things that I do is I protect my family. Another thing that I do is I practice law. And I'm a lawyer licensed in California and Texas. And hey, Tiffany, good seeing you. Dave Ellis, where am I at? Yeah, right now I am at Powerhouse Gym in Nevada. And I train. This is Iris Kiley's gym, and so she I think she's a 10-time Miss Olympia, and my wife actually trains with her. And my wife has a bodybuilder, like Miss Fitness kind of body, super hot. Yeah, Kinetic Customs F. Let's do it, brother. Out freaking standing. Ah! And you can see I got my Leathernecks Peacemaker shirt on. I'm a supporter of the Leathernecks Peacemaker chapter out in Houston. Those are my homies. Now, What's the Matter You says it's not supposed to be this way. The law here was meant to be clear and straightforward so even the common man can understand. Oh, look, bro, you're preaching to the choir. That's why I come on and do these shows, because I know most people think like you, man, and I don't want you guys going to jail. I care about you guys. Do you think I make any money off of these? Like, occasionally you guys will give me a couple bucks and I'll put that in a Roth IRA for my daughter or my son, or I'll donate it to somebody like Reluctant Prophet, or This Is a Public Service. But I do these shows because I care about people, and I was a pro per litigant long before I became a lawyer. And I'm one of these guys that used to drive around with the British West Indies license plates, and hey, you don't need a license and all that, and would film with the big cameras, and the cops would smash my camera, me and my buddies. and try to lock us up and charge us with resisting arrest. So I ended up getting beat up by a West Covina cop for doing that, and he charged me with a 148. But luckily I had other witnesses, and I had my Marine Corps brothers come out and get declarations and witness statements. And because of that, because of the quick action of my beloved fellow Marines, those 148 charge was thrown out. I sued under 1983. I think we brought a Monell claim against this scumbag officer out in West Covina, and I was able to secure about $29,999, which was a lot of money back in like 2005. So that's kind of what I did. And thanks, Kurt Bronson. I'm grateful for you guys too. F, good seeing you. Rahul Mehta, good seeing you too. Age Go. So all you guys, super awesome to see you. And if you know anybody who has a corporation, spread the word so they don't do something stupid like try to represent their corporation and they're not a lawyer. Because especially if the party that they're suing has just a little tiny fraction of knowledge of law, guess what's going to happen, guys? Guess what's going to happen? They're going to call the local prosecutor and have you prosecuted because you're engaged in the criminal activity of unauthorized practice of law. Okay? And again, the exception would be small claims court. I don't know the law in your state. Like, for example, if you're in Arizona, I would presume that it's the same. But hopefully you guys can share some information with me and let me know what you think. Did you guys have a good, was this a good one? It was, yeah, I'm going to try to have a good workout. Was this a decent one, guys? I mean, I'm doing my best to try to teach you guys and still be able to feed my family, but hopefully it was a good one. And then again, share me your information. And I love seeing all those private first class chevrons, guys. Those are all subscribed members. Make sure to buy memberships for other people too, guys, so they can get pinged and become members of Team MPE. I'm up to 23,000 subscribers now. And one of my DEI videos I did the other day, didn't earn it, is already up to almost 700,000 views, which is pretty impressive. Remember when I threw my back out, I was down to 90,000, 80,000 or 50,000 views after basically a month of not going live. And just that one short, boom, it brought me back. So now I have 1 million views again, and I used to average 1 million views a month. Help me get those views up, guys, by saving, liking, and subscribing, and buying a membership. And Age Go asks, how is Lane and Henry doing? You know, Age, I got to be honest with you. I don't share any information that has been confidentially shared with me by people like that, unless they specifically tell me to. I really believe in keeping things confidential. And so out of respect for my oath as a lawyer, as well as just humanity, let's face it, guys, repeat after me. The easiest way to lose a friend is to share things that they've told you in confidence. Remember that. The easiest way to lose a friend is to share things with other people that friend shared with you in confidence. So just don't do it. Show respect for other people. What was I doing? So what's the matter? How did I throw my back out? The way that my back got injured originally is I got a serious knee injury in the Marine Corps, and that made me walk with an irregular gait. And over time, and plus I'm a judoka, right? So over time, my L5 ended up getting a really bad disc bulge and pinching off my L5, and I got really swollen, like a huge disc bulge. And so that pinched off my sciatic nerve all the way down my left leg. But it wasn't, so when you say back injury, most people don't get it. It's not your back that hurts. It's the leg. It's like you drag your leg is the sciatic nerve. It feels like a million razor blades. And so that's why no matter how much of a badass you are, one of the best things that you can do is to make sure that you always have a heater with you, because you're not always going to be the biggest and the baddest. There's always another judoka or an MMA fighter or someone out there who's much tougher than you. So keep that in mind, and you always want to make sure that you're armed and ready to defend your family at all times, and that you live in a state that supports the right to keep and bear arms. So you don't want to live in mini Canada like California, or anywhere where you're going to have some leftist prosecutor who looks at you as though you're not the victim when you've defended your wife and kids. So just keep that in mind as well. Yeah, squats are pretty bad too, homie. Sticky Wicked Thoughts talks about squats. Single Liberty Absurdity, single member LLC, same as DBA. No, any kind of a corporation is not the same as a DBA. Anytime you set up a corporation, that becomes a separate and distinct person apart from who you are as an individual. So honestly, if you think that you're going to be dealing with lawsuits, uh, unless you can afford a lawyer, it doesn't make sense to set up a corporation unless you're a lawyer like me. And even then, I hate representing myself or my corporation. And it's not your corporation, by the way. That's a play on words. You manage the corporation. Just like if there's a trust that you set up, you manage the assets of the trust. It's not yours. In fact, if you use words like my corporation or my trust, that could help the judge or your opposition pierce the corporate veil, because it's evidence that you're treating it as if it's your personal asset or your personal property as opposed to a separate and distinct entity. So yeah, you always want to have heaters, and my heaters, Age Go, are built by Terran Butler from Terran Tactical, and he was building my guns before he started building all the John Wick guns. So if you look at the logo on the side of my weapons, most of them will have the Terran Tactical logo, and he customizes all my Glocks, so they all have custom triggers, Trigicons. And as you guys know, I teach a close quarters battle class to female RAPE victims, or at least I used to, not lately. And I teach shoot house and stuff like that. I have a couple of buddies who are Navy SEALs, and a few of my buddies are also MARSOC Marines. So I love, hey, Cannon, you raw, Devil Dog. So I love doing that kind of stuff, and I'll always be a kid, always be a Marine, man, at heart. And to me, it's like, it's part of being a man, being able to know how to handle yourself with a firearm, and to always be armed, because you just never know. That oath never dies once you take it. And remember, we have a duty to defend our country against all enemies, foreign and domestic, right, guys? So anyways, guys, I am going to go and hit the gym. I really appreciate y'all joining me. Again, make sure to like and subscribe. Make sure to save, because we never know when the thought police are going to take down this channel. Semper Fi, do or die.